You mentioned earlier how one of the first miners you got was a Raspberry Pi. So that means that like it's a relatively cheap device to get. Um, is it still that way where you can still buy a Raspberry Pi and set it up as a miner?
So let me clarify a bit there. Yes, if you open up the miner, inside of it's a Raspberry Pi, but that's not enough to do the mining. So you have to have a LoRa module that's then hooked up to that Raspberry Pi. That has a very unique key that Helium distributes to the manufacturers that then make available the devices. Now, due to both the insanity of the current supply chain situation that we're all a part of, specifically with microchips, that has made things really, really difficult. And then couple that with the fact that, the very early days of mining, I mean, even now, miners do pretty well. So there's a lot of incentive for folks to, purchase the equipment. But in the very early days, it was just, you have folks that have waited over a year for the equipment. Even with us being early, our first few orders came quickly. There's others that we waited 7 months for. And there's even ones now we're still waiting on. You have some instances for different organizations. Well, first of all, there's a lot of folks making helium miners now. It went from literally one manufacturer for like a really long time to it evolving to now dozens. So that has opened things up, but a lot of these manufacturers have opened up their lists, have huge backlogs, and then it's turned into a whole other enterprise as far as reselling the actual hardware. So that same equipment, yes, Raspberry Pi is very, cost-wise very low, but add the LoRa module and add this like demand that goes on right now. That device that's normally $400 or $500 now retails for 2 and 3 times that on eBay, and that's now. There was a time where it was a steady $7,000-8,000 a miner because of the instant ROI and the ability to immediately recoup what you spent on it and then some just in the first few weeks. So that's died down a lot because, like I mentioned before, we had, the 2.5 million coins every month. It's one thing when it's being distributed to 20,000 hosts. It's a whole other thing when it's being distributed to 380,000 and growing by like 80 or 90,000 hosts a month. So you're doubling every 3 months. So in essence, the rewards are halving every few months. But then further add spice to the stew, you have HNT that has just skyrocketed in the last year, going from $1 or $1.25 equivalent when converting to now in the 30s, but peaking at one point in the around $55 or $56. So that's huge. So it's really interesting because at one point, hundreds of HNT a month were only worth 1,000. Now dozens are worth the same. So it kept shifting back and forth. It's actually really interesting. At one point, it became very advantageous as it went up, and then it kind of died down a little bit. Then the price surged again. So in some ways, the growth of the demand for the HNT cryptocurrency offsets the dilution of the distribution of rewards. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so it's pretty interesting the way that works. So, and I have a lot of folks that really wish that they hadn't sold it every month when they got their payouts. Can't tell you guys how many folks have that wish they hadn't done that, but
Yeah.